Want to train and ramp your sales team in half the time? Check out this episode. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, we're going to be talking about 3 ways that you can train and ramp your sales team in half the time. And I got Miss Jennifer Smith on the podcast. Now, if you haven't listened to our podcast before, I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe because we're going to notify you every time we drop a new piece of content. And this one is no different. It's an amazing piece of content. It's coming from the archive. And Jennifer laid out 3 simple things that you can do. I mean, many of us have team members that we're bringing on all the time, or maybe you're training teams, or if you're an individual going onto a new team, how can you make sure that you're ramping and you're going to hit your numbers as quick as possible? This episode will give you some of those ideas. Now, I want you, as you dive into this in this new year, look for ways that you can take some of these concepts, even if you're a seasoned seller, and apply it to your sales game and see if you can improve. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. I mean, I'm pumped about it. I think you're going to, no, I don't think, I know you're going to give us a lot of value today. This is something that I say this about all the topics, but I feel like as folks are listening to the episodes, they're probably like, Donald, you said that about all of them, but I really do like this topic. I handpicked these topics with my team, so it's great. But 3 ways to train and ramp your team in half the time. And I feel that if you're a sales leader, if you're a BDR, if you're an SDR, you can find benefit from this. If you're an account executive, this is going to be helpful for you to be able to help your AE that you work, your BDR that you work with, or SDR. So there's so much that's going into this. So I would love to dive in and just kind of tell us a little bit more about you. I bragged about you for a bit in a teaser, but what do you do right now?
I run a company here in Silicon Valley called Scribe. I'm the co-founder and CEO. We are a SaaS company that makes productivity software. So on theme for what we're talking about today.
Oh my, right on point. Well, let's dive into this. Like the problem that we find, well, I set the problem all the time, but I would love to hear from you. What do you see as a problem when it comes towards training and ramping the sales team these days?
I think a lot about productivity, and I think about this from 2 lenses, right? Obviously, running a productivity company, it's what I talk to our customers about day in and day out, and it's a topic I'm incredibly passionate about, probably not surprisingly. And then 2, I think about running a sales team, right? We originally started founder-led selling. It was me selling, and then we've now grown our sales team to include both sales leadership and a number of reps. And to me, it's all about how do you spend as much time as possible doing the singular thing that drives the most impact? And for different people, that's going to look like different things, right? If you're a sales leader, that's like, how do I spend most of my time coaching and mentoring my reps? If you're a rep, it's how do I spend as much time as possible talking to a customer, understanding their problems, trying to solve their problems for them. But the truth is, if you look at your day, how much of your time do you actually spend doing those things that are core singular to you versus everything else? Like for me as a CEO, the kind of like unique value add that I should and hope I'm bringing is setting an overall vision for the company, motivating people against that, motivating customers against that, et cetera. But I spend a lot of my time doing a bunch of other stuff too, right? And so I think a lot about how do I for myself, how do I for my team, and how do I for my customers through the software that we build, make it so people spend as much time as possible doing the thing they are singularly good at, the thing that they 10x, the reason that they were hired, and like automate or take away as much of that other stuff as possible.
So with that being said, hiring people in role, I think the average BDR stays in a role 18, 24 months. That's still not a long time in a grand scheme of, our parents' days. But if this is a case, you only have X amount of time for this person to start, hit the ground and start running fast to get to the results. You mentioned 3 main points when we chat that we need to be aware of when it comes towards helping our team ramp fast. And one of them was scale yourself, get people the things they actually need, and obviously do that timely. And then the other one was scale your best rep. And I would just love to take a few minutes and just break down each of those. Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, when you say scale yourself, talk to me about that. How is that going to help me with this dilemma that I'm going through right now to get my reps on the team faster and improve?
Scale yourself is all about, again, figuring out the core things that you're really good at and making it so you spend as much of your time on that as possible. And you take all of the other kind of repetitive tasks, the things that actually fill a lot of your day but don't add as much value, and you try to figure out, how do I reduce those repetitive tasks or automate them or pull them away to other people? And so it's really this idea of like, let's find the leverage points in your time. So if do you want to talk about this from the perspective of an individual rep, or you said like onboarding and hiring new people? Maybe let's talk about
Let's
it
do
from an
both.
individual. I'm an individual, and then maybe
Okay,
we can
let's do
talk
an
about it, like
individual.
what it means, how I can do this for other people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm an individual. Okay, so what are all the things that you end up doing in a given day, right? Okay, so I'm prospecting for new leads. I'm hopefully spending time talking to those new leads. I'm following up with those leads and figuring out a cadence with them. And then there's all the other sales related stuff, right? All the processes, whether that's like entering my leads, tracking. It probably looks like a lot of stuff in Salesforce or whatever you use your CRM, right? Communicating with
Yeah.
my sales leadership, answering questions for them, maybe talking to my sales ops people, getting trained on new stuff, et cetera. Okay, so how do we really like automate or try to really scale all of those other activities? You're spending as much on 2 and 3, talking to customers and following up with customers. And so when you're looking at prospecting, like I've worked with AEs who will use tools that will make it so that they can do like 10x the amount of outbound as other people. And so I'm sure you've had whole other kind of podcasts and sessions on this, but it's really worth looking into, like, what are ways that you can really hone in on like the right messaging, and you do the right sort of testing of run different A/B tests. We do this a lot ourselves, like run different A/B tests for messaging and the target persona you go after, and then use tools to really scale that up as much as possible, because a lot of it ends up being a volume game, right? And then for, kind of all that other stuff on the back end, it's thinking about like, what are the core processes that you do, and how much of your time are you spending like trying to figure out how to do those processes, like figuring it out for the first time versus continuing to do it over and over again. And so we think a lot at Scribe about all this stuff of how much time are you spending trying to figure out how to do something for the first time. There's really interesting research that McKinsey did, where they looked at, just for an average knowledge worker, so not sales specific, how much of your time are you spending actually like just trying to find information that you need and answer questions that you have. And they found that it's about a day a week. It's about 20% of your time. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that that would look different for sales versus your average knowledge worker. And that number sounds high, but then I'll tell you, I talk to our customers who are often in sales, customer success, kind of customer facing roles. And then I say like, okay, well, let's like break down how you spend your time. And they sit there and we kind of break it down together. And then at the end they go, it might even be 25%. Like I actually spend a lot more of my time than I think I do, like trying to find info. Oh, I have to generate that quarterly sales report. I only do it once a quarter. I don't quite remember. Oh, you guys have changed the tooling here. What am I supposed to be doing there? I'm supposed to be, writing this up for this prospect. Where exactly does that information live? And so finding this is now, what we think a lot about at Scribe, but how do you make it so that people can capture and share this information really easily across teams and take that 25% down to nearly zero? And so what could you do with a day a week back of your time? I know it sounds like a lot, but I would tell you, like, the next week, like, stop and think anytime you're asking a question. Hey, how am I doing something? Or wait, let me try to like navigate this software and figure something out, and add all of those small instances up. And it actually turns out to be quite a bit, all of those kind of micro, interruptions. And so really finding like, how do I bat as much of that away as possible, and really try to create these focused chunks of time where I'm doing my unique thing. And if you're an AE, your unique thing is getting on the phone or however you engage with your customers.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, you're making me think now with some with some of the stuff here. I find that it's when you look at the data, because in sales so often I find I feel like we just make it like, just, it's more about that feeling, and I just keep saying feeling over and over again. But it's like, you feel like you're doing great. You feel like all of this stuff, but you got to look at the numbers too. Like, how many appointments did you actually get, and how much business are you actually bringing in? You may feel like you've been productive today, but are you doing the things that are right? And this idea of how we can help us to scale ourselves by evaluating, those things that are not necessarily the most effective, and getting them out, or you know doing it better. I don't know. You give me some thoughts.
It's one of those things where you could sort of say like, "Oh yeah, of course," but my challenge is to really
Yeah.
like stop and look at any given day or couple days and see just how many interruptions do you have? How much time are you spending like trying to do some various different tasks that are not talking to a customer, where either someone's pinging you with a question or you're asking a question or you're doing a process but takes you probably longer than it should because you're not quite sure what you're doing. And those things really add up. We've had customers who will do rigorous time studies. Doesn't that sound
Hmm.
fun? Where they ask people to track like lawyers in 7-minute increments how they spend their time, and they find it's around like 15% of any given day that they're spending just trying to find info on how to do a task. So we're not even talking about doing tasks that are lower value add. We're talking about like preparing to do a task. Um,
Yeah.
and so those we call those a time vampire, kind of jokingly at Scribe, but we're always like, don't let the time vampire get you, because
Yeah.
time is money, and you could spend that time and it feels productive. Like you feel like, oh, I was working, I was doing something. But my challenge or push is, did you actually have to be spending that time? Could have there been better ways to get that info or to get that task done, because it's not your core selling task?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that I see that vampire right now. Just like I imagine that. Imagine what that might look like. Um, so scaling ourselves, that's how we can do that. That's one way we can go about making it happen. Can you flip it to the other side when it comes towards a team? This was for the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. This to me is point two, which is like getting people the info that they need. So this is
Hmm.
a bit more on the sales enablement territory, but it's a similar idea of, okay, if people are spending a bunch of time like trying to just get info they need. Hey, I know I'm supposed to enter this stuff into Salesforce, right? You guys have harped that into me. Like, how do I actually do it? And when I go to do it, like, am I like doing it in the right way? Am I taking too much time trying to figure it out? And so, how do you just get the right info to people at the moment that they need it at the right time? Whether it's a
Mm.
new rep, and you're trying to reduce ramp time for that rep, or whether it's like, frankly, your best performing rep who's been there for 5 years, right? But you're still trying to take away all that time vampire and make it so they can spend as much time as possible on the core task. We have a customer, they're a very big technology company, and their sales team is 50% new this year.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, because of the they've seen kind of a lot of attrition, and the great resignation, plus they're growing, kind of a combination of factors. And you talk to their senior sales leadership, and they're obviously quite concerned about how are we going to manage so much turnover in a year. We've got a massive onboarding problem for all of these new folks. And so
Yeah.
it's okay, how do I think about everything that someone needs to be effective? And I think teams are really good at thinking about the core sales parts, right? Okay, like, what's our pitch? How do you talk about us compared to competitors? Like, what's a good demo? And sort of all of that stuff you need getting in. But then
Right.
once someone's actually butt in seat and it's day two, week two, maybe even month two, and they've got to go do all of those time vampire tasks, all of these little processes, if you trained them on it in the beginning, they're not going to remember, right? They're not going to remember, like, how am I supposed to generate that quarterly report? Like, how exactly do I like log the contract into whatever system we're using, all of that kind of stuff. And so, how do you think about getting them the info they need at the time that they're trying to get it? And ideally, that's more of a pull model than a push model, right? So, we at Scribe, when we design our software to help our customers with this problem, think about how do we make it so when that rep is about to send that contract and needs to, dot some I's and cross some T's on how to do it, how do we make it so like it pushes that information to them at that time in the moment that they have a question, rather than them guessing or pinging someone and trying to ask them how to do it, or spending a bunch of time trying to track it down themselves.
Yeah. I can tell you that half the jobs that I've been in, maybe more than half of them, when I 90, let's say 90% of the jobs that I've been in before I obviously started TSC here, when you'd go in and you do the training, all that stuff just went over my head. One company did
Yeah.
they did a really good job with like onboarding, like a training week, and you had the binders and you're getting taught, and they did a really good job. I remember going talking to my friends about how good the onboarding process was, but I still can't remember those details of those tasks per se, to do that, or I couldn't, even though did have the binder. They had more reference points, but all that stuff go over your head. So it's a good point with you bring up with that.
Yeah, there's different kinds of knowledge, right? And you got to think about
Yeah.
when you want to communicate that. So if you're talking about, implicit knowledge, how do I build empathy with a customer, right? That's the kind of stuff that's really good in a like kind of traditional onboarding and training program. But if you're talking about, there's a lot of tacit knowledge that never even gets written down, and the way most people learn it, especially when they're onboarding, is by what I call like shoulder tapping. It's basically
Yeah.
apprenticeship. You ask the guy sitting next to you, or when we're all remote, you ping someone on Slack and you say, hey, dude, can you just quickly show me how to do this? And if you ever talk to sales ops people, they're usually on the receiving end of these questions. And they're
All
like,
day
there's a
long.
lot of them all day long. And sellers are very impatient, as they should be. And so they need their answer right now. And so how do you think about like capturing all that information and not inundating people with it in week one, but making it so that it's available in the right context, in the right place at the moment that they have that question, and that they know that it's there? And so you almost don't have to like load it into your brain and say, okay, I have to remember all of this. All you have to say is, okay, I have to know when I got to go do, generate that quarterly report or whatever. Like I know that there's like a reference there, and I can just go quickly find it and follow that reference and boom, be done with it really fast.
Love it. Which goes into like so that's getting people the things they actually need. So now I'm scaling myself, scaling my team, and I'm getting people the things that actually need. The third point you brought up was scale your best rep. Well, how do I do that portion?
Yeah, I'll tell you the nexus of this point for me, which
Mhm.
comes from the customer success world like 15 years ago. So I was a
Yeah.
consultant at McKinsey for almost a decade before I founded Scribe, and I did a lot of organization and operations optimization work. That's a mouthful. What it actually means is I would go into customer contact centers and sit next to agents for 8 hours a day, looking over their shoulder and figuring out what they were doing. And the name of the game is you figure out who are the best people. What's the top 20% of people in that contact center, in that customer care center? And what are they doing differently than everyone else? And then what you try to do is bring all of your quartiles up a quartile to try to match that performance, right? So I would literally find the best rep in that center and say like, hey, Gilbert, you're my new best friend. Like, what are you doing differently, Gilbert? And I'll date myself here a little bit. Gilbert would pull out a really thick binder and thunk it down on the desk and say, like, here's all the stuff they trained me to do. Right. And I tried to memorize all of this. It was hard. I had 2 weeks of intensive training, which, by the way, doesn't really make sense when the average turnover is 100% in a given year in a customer contact center. That's a different story. Here's all the stuff they trained me to do. But I found these 30 shortcuts instead. And here's what I'm doing differently. And as a consultant, my team would write that up in PowerPoint, and we would update their binder and, sell it to our customers a whole bunch of money. And the idea is like, well, what if you could figure out what those best people are doing more automatically and scale it across everyone? And so with Scribe, what we tell our customers to do is Scribe is software that will watch people do work and auto-generate step-by-step written guides with screenshots that show
Oh my
how to
goodness.
do that process. And so what we tell our customers to do is, have your best reps, like the folks who have been there for a while, or the people who have figured out, who have kind of all of this like implicit know-how around, how your business works and how you guys sell. Have them hit the record button when they go to do one of the processes. And when they're done, have them hit stop record. And now it'll auto-generate a step-by-step written guide with screenshots about how to do that process. And so what you start to do over time is you're now capturing all of this kind of like know-how that's in people's heads around how they do the things that make them really good, how they fight away the time vampire so that they spend more time selling. And then share that information with everyone who needs it. Make it available to them, right? And make it available to them at the moment that they need it. So when they go into Salesforce, they can see the 5 step-by-step guides that their best rep has created around how he uses Salesforce really quickly. Okay, now you're finding ways to sort of take that information, that knowledge that makes your best rep really good, and you're almost like lifting it out of their head and shifting it and downloading it into someone else's head. And to the point that we just talked about in number 2, downloading it into someone's head, not in a, hey, here's a dedicated 2 weeks of training, memorize everything, but in a, hey, this is available to you. And like next time you go to do that process or task, just know that like, Gilbert's guide is going to be there for you when you need it. And it's continually updating because you're always finding better ways of doing things.
You're getting me so pumped up for this stuff now. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet, we're going to give you a way that you guys can check out Scribe. But I find that there are so many things that we probably do. And I'm just like, even thinking about it from, and like how much more effective a team could be if I did know what was going on in, say, half the team members' head. Like, what do they do that's different? One of the calls I had today was with a BDR who kind of stated, like, everyone have their different ways of being successful in the organization. There's no necessarily one way, but imagine if, like, sales enablement just say, this is how you guys write a cold email, or a marketing team, and we don't, I don't go through the process to see how the way that Jen does it, how she utilized LinkedIn. Like, that process is good, but I'm seeing like 4 processes here. Like, that's going to help me. That's like, that's training. That's good data right there. And you can create a hybrid with your, like you said, scale your best rep, but I can create a hybrid in that situation with, like, what a couple of my best reps are doing and put it together. My brain is just going on so many different thoughts right now.
Yeah, I would disagree with your BDR a little bit, right? I think they're, when it comes to things that are personal style, like how I run a call, how I build rapport with a customer, no single right way to do that, right? That's very personal, and it's whatever is kind of authentic and works best for you. But there are actually many things that are not quite subjective, where there is actually empirically a best way to do it, right? Writing a cold email, you can A/B test that quite a bit and see which one has the highest response rate. Like, there actually is an optima there. You just don't know what it is yet, but like your goal is to go and seek it out, right? The best way to, like, very quickly get the info into Salesforce you need already there. The way that you follow up with a customer based on what you talked about in a conversation. Like, you should be having templates. Like, we kind of create templates. Okay, so we talk to a customer, like, here are the 5 ways that they could use when we're selling Scribe. Here are the 5 ways that they could use Scribe based on what they're choosing. Like, here's the info we send to them afterwards. Here's the template of what that looks like. And you obviously can customize based on what you're talking about. But like, there are kind of playbooks and templates so that you're not reinventing the wheel. Like, a rep should not be sitting there sending a follow-up and like rewriting every single word.
No, definitely not.
because you're doing that how many times a day? Like, and it's often the same information. So use some kind of tool to create a template, and then you kind of customize on top of that.
I think they're probably alluding to the subjective side of things. Like, like there's, but like you're right on a point there with it. Like, there's certain things you're not going to need to reinvent over and over and over again. But I'm just thinking, like, I guess at the top of it, like, you can aggregate a lot of good info, but most companies are not aggregating it at all. So that's what I'm saying. Like, a tool like Scribe can help me to figure out what's the best.
And especially, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why, right? One is it's just hard to do today. Like, if I were to say, hey, Donald, what's the best way that I can really quickly close out an opportunity in Salesforce or something, right? Like, what are your options? Are you going to like get on a Zoom with me for 20 minutes and walk me through it? Exactly. Like, are you going to like send me like some detailed step by step? No, you're sort of like, you'll probably be like, Jennifer, just figure it out, or ask your sales ops person, right?
Go on Google.
Go on Google. Exactly. So although hopefully like your company's found a way that works for them, right? So Google doesn't actually really solve that. So there's no kind of great way to do it. And I would say, the other thing is it's cultural, right? I mean, salespeople are often individual hunters, right? And like, they're incredibly resourceful, and you're like, I kind of rely on myself and my lead book, and like, this is it. I'm going to hunt it down and I'm going to do it, which is awesome and wonderful. But when you're talking about trying to up level a team, you need a different cultural shift. And this is something I push with our sales team a lot, which is, I'm like, look, we are constantly running experiments. You should think of every single day, every interaction with a customer is an experiment. Now, right now, each of you are little scientists, and you're running all of your own little experiments, and no one's sharing the data back with each other. Now, imagine if you've got 5 sellers, whatever, right? we're running 5x as many experiments. If you all are able to share with each other, you're going to learn 5 times as fast. And so we have weekly call. We have a dedicated Slack channel for sales learnings. We've got weekly calls where we'll go through and share like, okay, we tested this week. We wanted to see how this messaging worked, or this change in our demo, or we used a new pitch deck, or whatever it is. And then like, let's talk about what worked and what didn't work. People are like, oh, I tried this and like that worked really well. I tried this, wasn't so well received. And so I'm always pushing like, how do we think about this as like a rapid learning machine? You don't usually think of yourself as a rapid learning machine, right? But I think everyone should, and especially sales, where every minute that you haven't learned something that's better is a minute lost, right? Of better selling. So how do you like build the team culture too, and then put the processes and tools in place so people can really quickly share with each other what they've learned in a way that isn't a time vampire, right? That doesn't take a bunch of time away from them that they should be spending selling with customers.
Oh my goodness, Jen, this is amazing. If there's one piece of advice, one major piece of advice you want somebody to leave this conversation with, what's that one major piece of advice?
Anything that you are doing that is not talking to a customer, stop and ask yourself, could I scale this in a particular way? Could I create a template? Could I use a tool? Is there a way that I could have my where my customer feels like I'm spending more time with them, I'm doing something better for them, and it took me less time? Usually there is. We're often in like kind of a limited mindset of saying, oh no, like I must spend more time to have a better output on the other side. And the answer is actually often not. Which is the amount of time you spend on something and the outcome that comes on the other side is often divorced from each other. It's radical, but it's true in a lot of instances. Not every instance, but a lot of instances. And so any moment that you are doing something and you say like, hey, wait a minute, if I'm not on the phone with a customer, could I be scaling this in some way? Is there some kind of automation? Is there some kind of better way that someone else might have figured out that I can access? How do I constantly find these leverage points?
Love it. Absolutely love it. If folks want to get in touch with you or to check out Scribe, and I know there's a way they can go about doing so, right?
Yeah, you can find me directly on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. You can find our company on our website, scribehow.com, scribehow.com. Our tool's free, and it's a very generous free tool. We've got a lot of salespeople who will use it oftentimes with customers. So if you've got a customer who's like, especially if you're selling software, it's like, hey, how do I do this thing? I'm trying to set up my pilot, or I have a question on how your software works. Like, you can just send them a Scribe. And the average Scribe takes 56 seconds to create, but it looks like it took you 45 minutes. And so sellers love it because this is my point about the you send it to a customer and they're like, wow, you spent all this time. I feel really like seen and heard, like I'm getting some white glove service here. And the seller on the other side's like, it's a stock template, or I created this one just for you, but it only took me 45 seconds. So feel free to check it out and to use it on our website again, it's completely free. There are some features that are part of the paid plan. If folks are interested in upgrading to the paid plan, they can do so with a promo code for listeners of the Sales Evangelist. The promo code is, you guessed it, the Sales Evangelist. And that's at scribehow.com, scribehow.
Well, we love this. We're excited for it, and we're going to go ahead and put in our show notes, and we're going to use it internally. So we're going to take advantage of that. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today, Jen, and sharing this insights with us.
Thanks so much, Donald. Bat away that time vampire.
Get away. Go. Love it. Hey, that was Jennifer Smith. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and connect with us, connect with her and myself on LinkedIn. Would love to have you in our network. And in addition, I want you to take the things you learn and apply it. This stuff works, but you just got to make sure you put the effort into it. In addition, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and check out our mastermind. Would love to have you join. You can find more details by going to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise the level of thinking, but most importantly, I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.